There are certain spaces you walk into and your body reacts almost instantly. Your shoulders drop, your breathing slows, your mind feels a little lighter. Not because the room is fancy or impressive, but because there isn't much fighting for your attention. It's clean, open, just quiet enough for your brain to relax. Then you walk back into your own space. A closet packed with clothes. A desk where you can't even see the surface anymore. And just looking around already feels tiring, even before you do anything. What's interesting is that not everyone notices this contrast. Some people feel perfectly fine either way, but others sense it immediately. They feel relief when there's less around them, and real discomfort when things become too cluttered. So why do some people feel calmer with fewer things, while others feel uneasy in empty spaces? Maybe minimalism isn't just an aesthetic choice. Maybe it reflects how the brain processes information and how it finds rest. In psychology, there's a concept called high need for cognitive closure. Put simply, it describes a brain that prefers things to feel clear, settled, and complete. And people who are drawn to minimalism often score high in this area. For them, every visible object isn't just an object. It quietly feels like an unfinished task. A stack of unopened mail, clothes left on a chair instead of put away, an item they haven't decided to keep or get rid of yet. Each one stays slightly open in the mind. When there are too many of these open loops, their brain never fully relaxes. It's like having dozens of tabs open at once. Nothing is urgent, but everything pulls a little bit of attention. That's why they tend to dislike prolonged uncertainty and feel best when things are finished, organized, and clear. Research also suggests that people like this report lower anxiety when they're surrounded by fewer possessions. Their minds simply function better in simpler environments. In other words, their brain relaxes when fewer things are asking for closure. What matters here is that this difference isn't about willpower or tolerance. It's not that some people are stronger or more disciplined than others. Some people can live comfortably surrounded by collections, colors, and objects and feel perfectly at ease. Others start to feel overwhelmed with just a few extra things in the room. That difference isn't a character trait, it's a neurological one. It comes down to how the brain responds to stimulation. People who are drawn to minimalism aren't weak or rigid. Their nervous system is simply more sensitive to mental noise, and it registers overload sooner than most. It's not about what you can endure. It's about how your brain processes what's around you. In psychology, there's a concept known as internal locus of control. It refers to the belief that you can create a sense of stability and well-being through your own actions, rather than relying on things outside yourself. The opposite is an external locus of control, the mindset that says if you buy the right thing, own the right object, or upgrade to something new, life will feel better. But people who are drawn to minimalism often think differently. You can see it clearly when they're standing in front of something they could buy. It's not that they don't like it, and it's not that they can't afford it. They just don't believe that object is going to fix how they feel for very long. So they're less influenced by advertising, less pulled by trends, and more grounded in their own agency. They don't outsource their well-being to objects. A large body of research in psychology points to the same pattern. When material values become a central focus in someone's life, they often come with higher insecurity and lower overall satisfaction. Psychologist Tim Kasser's work has shown this consistently. The more people tie their sense of worth to what they own, the less settled they tend to feel. For many people, accumulating possessions isn't really about the objects themselves. It's an attempt to fill a gap, something emotional, something unsteady, something that doesn't quite feel complete. Buying becomes a way to temporarily feel whole. People who are drawn to minimalism often operate differently. They tend to find a sense of value in other places, inside themselves, in their relationships, in experiences they actively participate in rather than things they simply possess. Research by Van Boven and Gilovich also suggests that experiences bring longer-lasting happiness than material purchases. Minimalists seem to understand this intuitively. They don't define themselves by what they own. They define themselves by how they live, what they do, and who they share their time with. About 20% of the population has higher sensory sensitivity. For people in this group, a cluttered environment isn't just visually messy or unpleasant. It's genuinely overwhelming. Each object competes for attention, creating a kind of constant background noise in the mind. In these spaces, it's not just harder to focus. The body itself can feel more tense without a clear reason why. Brain imaging studies even suggest that visual clutter can activate stress responses, especially for those who are more sensitive to stimulation. That's why minimalism for many of these people doesn't stop at physical possessions. It naturally extends into other areas of life. Simpler schedules, fewer commitments, cleaner routines. They're not trying to follow a trend or prove a point. They're intentionally creating environments where their nervous system can stay calm. Another common trait among people drawn to minimalism is how they relate to the future. In psychology, this is called a future-oriented time perspective. It means they naturally think beyond the immediate moment when making decisions. You can see this most clearly when they're shopping. Instead of only asking, "Do I like this?" they tend to ask a few more questions. Will I still want this in a year? Where will it live in my space? What happens when I move? Often, just answering those questions is enough for the urge to buy to fade on its own. This doesn't mean they lack desire. It means they don't live impulsively. They think one step ahead. Research shows that future-oriented people tend to save more, make fewer impulsive choices, and maintain healthier habits overall. Minimalism, for them, is simply long-term thinking made visible. It's important to say this clearly. Minimalism isn't a moral standard. It's not a superior way of living, and it's not something everyone should aim for. If you're drawn to minimalism, your brain may simply need more order to feel at ease. You may value autonomy, and you may find meaning through experiences and relationships rather than through accumulating things. That combination makes a simpler environment feel supportive instead of empty. And if minimalism doesn't appeal to you, that's completely valid. Some people thrive in abundance, variety, and visual richness. Their nervous system feels safe and energized in those environments. What matters most isn't whether you live minimally or not. It's understanding your own psychology and designing a life that works with it rather than against it. People who live more minimally are often misunderstood. They're sometimes seen as cold, overly selective, or even a little rigid. From the outside, it can look like they're saying no to things that other people enjoy, shopping, decorating, filling space. But that surface impression misses what's really happening. In reality, people drawn to minimalism tend to be very good at noticing what quietly drains their energy. A room with too much visual noise, a schedule packed with obligations, an object that seems nice at first, but comes with maintenance, decisions, and mental weight attached to it. They sense those costs early, and instead of pushing through them, they choose to step back. That doesn't come from detachment, it comes from awareness. Minimalism, for them, isn't about having less to prove a point. It's about protecting attention, clarity, and emotional balance. They aren't rejecting objects because they dislike them. They're choosing not to carry what they don't need. Seen this way, minimalism isn't a lack. It's a filter, a way of keeping what matters and letting go of what doesn't. So if you find yourself drawn to simpler spaces and fewer possessions, there may be nothing missing in you at all. You might simply be very good at noticing what costs you energy and wise enough not to bring it home with you.